Today is August 17, 2007 at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We are interviewing Stanley Martin of Hudson, New York. He served in the infantry and the Air Force from March 1943 through September 1945. June and Kenneth Hunter are conducting this interview in Albany, New York. Please tell us your full name and when and where you were born.
Stanley Martin, and I was born in Brooklyn on November 12th, 1923.
And what did you do before you went into the military service?
Well, I was in high school until just before the war started, and my brother was 3 years older than I, and he was inducted in the Army, and we had a coat factory. We made coats for little girls, and I was from school I went into the factory to replace his absence.
Okay, and now did you enlist into the service or were you drafted?
I was drafted. I said that I volunteered, and I still have the blisters from the splinters in my fingers from the wooden banister that I held on to when they dragged me out of the house.
So we know you weren't very happy. How did your family feel? Were they upset?
My father was a veteran of World War I. He told us a lot of stories. He fought in the main battles in France. His pride in life was the fact that he served his country. We had quite a bit of knowledge of what war was like.
And where did you report for your basic training and induction?
I was inducted in Camp Upton in Yaphank, Long Island, and shipped from there to Camp Landing in Gainesville, Florida, where I was in the 66th Division Infantry. My brother had been in the infantry prior to me. He was 3 years older than I, and he had taken an aviation cadet test and sent a form to me to get out of the infantry and take the test for the aviation cadets, which I did.
And did you pass?
Well, I passed the test after having completed the entire infantry training. And that was in Little Rock, Arkansas, where we had been transferred to.
What was basic training like?
Basic training was, for me, a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I was very athletic, being out in the woods and doing all the things that you have to do. I was very happy with Army life. It was a lot different than my home life, which was very dull. So I enjoyed it. I look forward to doing all the things that we had to do.
Tell us some of the things you did. I know you probably had lots of running.
Well, it was lots of running and hiking, and the thing I remember was the 30-mile hike. And prior to the 30-mile hike, they warned you that you're not going to have any water except what you have in your canteen, and to be very careful that you don't used the water too soon. And we were trudging along, and after I decided that I'm not going to drink any water until I absolutely have to, we were out, I'd say, about 15 miles, and one of my buddies said, "Can you let me get some of your water?" And foolishly, I let him have my canteen. That he passed around, and by the time I got it back, it was empty. So I went 30 miles without any water at all. And that's something that's one of my fond memories.
How long did it take you to do the 30 miles? Do you remember?
That was a full day.
Whole day.
And at the end of the day, they led us to a lake. And I think every one of us jumped in the water, and I didn't think to take my wallet out of my pocket. We just jumped in and enjoyed the water. Yeah, that was quite a time.
So then when you left basic training, where did you go?
I went to Harlingen, Texas, Wichita Falls, Texas. And in the aviation cadets, I was washed out because of my eyes. I have very poor what do you call it again?
Eyesight?
Depth perception.
Okay.
Yes. You have to excuse me.
That's all right.
There are times when words fail me. I had very poor depth perception, and washed out of cadets. They sent me to gunnery school, which was quite an experience. I had learned to shoot a gun in the infantry, but shooting a shotgun and shooting skeet was a game that I had never participated in, and it was one of the joys of being in gunnery school, was learning how to shoot skeet. They put us on the back of a truck. When the front wheels of the truck touched a white line, the man in the house would let go with the bird, and you had to follow it. There were high ones and low ones, and by the time I finished, I was doing 9 out of 10.
Okay, from the basic training, you did this with the full battle pack, the 30-mile walk.
Yes.
Then from there, how did they decide where your next duty station and what the next operation would be for you?
Well, when I passed the test in Little Rock, Arkansas, I was taken away from the infantry and waited until I got my orders to report to Wichita Falls. And then in the aviation cadets, it's like starting basic training over again. But it was nothing like the infantry. It was kids' play in comparison. So we did a lot of calisthenics and basic marching. And the few fellas that I was with that transferred from the infantry were able to teach the other guys some of the things about marching and handling the arms.
And then when that was over, you must have had specialized training to do what you did later.
You went to gunnery school, and when I graduated gunnery school, I was sent to Colorado Springs, Colorado, and introduced to my crew. And there we had crew training. We were 10 men. There was a pilot, co-pilot, bombardier, navigator, crew chief, and radio operator, and gunners. 10 of us all together. And we were trained as a crew for each of our own specialties. Once we graduated from crew training, we were shipped to Lincoln, Nebraska, and picked up a brand new B-24, and then assigned to the 8th Air Force.
So you were always with the same people for your crew, correct?
With the crew, we were with the same.
Now, how did they select you for certain crews? Did you do a personality test, or
No,
did you
I guess it was just a matter of numbers.
hope that
we
you
need-
worked well together?
Right.
Okay, now you started to tell us you went to another place as a crew.
Well, as a crew, we had a problem with the plane. We wound up in Iceland for 30 days. At that time, D-Day was over in Europe. And when we left Iceland, we were assigned to a group. It was the 467th Bomb Group. But before they allowed us to work with the crew, with the group, we were shipped to Ireland, where we were given special training. They told us, whatever you learned in the United States, forget it. We're going to teach you what's going to happen. And they had experienced gunners and crew people that taught us within 10 days what to expect in combat.
Now, you said when you got to Iceland, there was a problem with the plane. Well, did you have a replacement aircraft? How did the people in Iceland treat you?
Oh, there was if you're referring to the natives hated us because we were there uninvited. The United States went into Iceland, which was a German radio and weather station, and took over. And it was something that the Icelanders, who are free people, weren't too happy with. Today, it's a different story. They welcome you for touring and as a tourist. But then they weren't too happy with us. The children, if you walked off the base, would spit at you and curse you, and you weren't supposed to go off the base. But after 30 days, we were put on a B-17 and shipped to England, and then to Ireland, and then back to England with our 467th bomb group.
Now, did you eventually end up in England being with a B-24 or a B-17 group?
B-24 group. Yeah, we were trained B-24s. Interesting thing, while I was there, I received a letter from an aunt who told me that she had a nephew in England, and sent me his address. And he happened to be in the same bomb group that I was, but he was in the ground crew. And that's where we met. He was her husband's nephew. I was her nephew. So the young man and I weren't related, but we became very good friends and did a lot of things together after we were discharged from the service. But that's where we met. And small world.
What was the training like? Did it pick up when you were in England?
Yes, the group commander was Colonel Showers, was quite a man. While I was there, we celebrated a 200 mission party, where that group had flown 200 missions. They had one plane that flew in all of the 200 missions, and they were celebrating with a very generous party. At the party, though, they brought over the Army crew that, what do you call them? They fly fighter planes and put on shows.
Blue Angel type?
Blue Angels, right. They brought over a crew of Blue Angels for the party. There was a
Now, this was a group that resembles today's present day Blue
Yes.
Angels.
And at the party, a pilot who had finished his missions as a bomber pilot and volunteered to be a fighter pilot, part of his training, he had to make a trip and selected our group where he had some friends that he would visit that day. Seeing the Blue Angels perform, he decided to do some stunts and unfortunately crashed and ruined our party to the effect that everything stopped at that point. He just missed a barrack that had some people in it, but he was the only one that was lost. And it was quite a sight to see.
Now, this brings back something you mentioned before from flight school, depth perception. Did this present a problem with you being a gunner?
Oh, no. Not really. As a matter of fact, there wasn't that often that I had the opportunity to even use the gun, except for practice. I was very fortunate, being towards the end of the time that we were at war. The fighter pilots, the German fighter pilots, weren't as visible. We had more problems with flak coming up. As a matter of fact, if you want to hear what flak sounds like, thump, that's the sound that you get, thump. And I could tell you a story about that. I was at my radio, radar countermeasure radio, and my seat was right near the bomb bay. The regular radio operator, during the bombing, the dropping of the bombs, had to sit in the bomb bay and hold a switch to control the doors in case our plane was hit, and so that the doors wouldn't close. He had this brake for the bomb bay doors. And I looked over, and this fellow, Dusty Rhodes, was a very, very, very tough individual. And I saw him saying his prayers down there. When we landed, I said, Dusty, you're not the kind of guy to say prayers. What's with the prayers? And he said, didn't you hear? The flak was clicking on the bombs. I didn't hear it, but he heard it. So that's what happened with that particular situation. I was with a fellow gunner And I saw him doing the same thing, and I asked him on another mission, what's with the prayers? And he said, come on outside and I'll show you. We had close to 100 holes in the side of the ship on his side and nothing on my side. I wound up being a very, very lucky guy. I have to tell you this. We were on a mission where we flew to Stuttgart, Germany, with this, I was flying with a strange crew. I was relaxing and, as a matter of fact, taking a nap on the bomb bay doors. And all of a sudden, it was as though we hit something. And my body went up to where my head almost hit the roof. I came down and I realized that we were hit. And I tried to open the bomb bay doors, the escape hatch, I'm sorry. I tried to open the escape hatch, and there were 3 men facing me, 2 gunners and another fellow, on a strange crew. I had never flown with them before. And 2 of them, their eyes were popping out of their heads with fear. And I kept calling, come and help me. Well, this one fellow came, and as he arrived, I opened the door and he fell out. And he had a backpack on. I had a backpack on. Seeing him go, I thought I got the order to bail out. So I hooked my chute up on the chest, didn't wait to hook the bottom, and jumped. As I left the plane, I pulled the ripcord and I slipped out of the chute to where I had the cords on my wrists. I put the cords under my armpits and steered away from the burning wreckage. And we were over the North Sea. It was March 4th, 1945. My feet touched the water. I threw my hands up, the chute went away, and down I went. I pulled the cords on my Mae West and I popped up. The waves were tremendously high. I had learned that you'd have to take your shoes off because they weigh you down. Every time I tried to remove a shoe, I swallowed water. I said, to hell with it, I'll go with my shoes on. A steamship, a tramp steamer, was passing by, and they were leaving me. They were going away from me, and I was calling for help. And I had opened the sea dye that's in the Mae West so that the water was all blue around me. The ship turned around and started to come back, and you can't imagine being up in these waves and the side of a big steamer comes up next to you as though he's parking a car at the curb. And they had the ladder down. They had thrown me a lifesaver, and they said, climb up, and I said, I can't, I'm too tired. So 2 men came down the ladder, and they said, get rid of that thing. And I said, no way, I wouldn't. If you drop me, I'm gonna hold this. And they carried me up and put me up on the deck. They took a knife and cut me out of my uniform and wrapped me in an old English blanket and carted me to a bunk. And while I was in there, this fellow came in and he said, are you the fellow that had the sea dye? And I said, yes. And he says, well, I'm the ship's engineer. I was in the engine room and I heard you calling for help, and I wanted to see the guy that had the lungs that were that strong that I could hear him. And unfortunately, I never got his name. I never had any information about the people. The other fellow hadn't used the sea dye, and that's why the ship went to look for him, picked him up, and came back for me. He was one of the crew that I had never met before. Seeing that I was the only survivor and not one of his crewmates, he had nothing to do with me. I never saw him again. I don't know who he is, don't know anything about him. A PT boat came and took me off the ship and brought me to a hospital. And one of my fears, being in a crew, by the way, I was in my barrack for 11 months, which was a long time for an air crewman to fly his missions. I had put together all the nice things that were comfortable for me. I had sheets, I had pillowcases, I had lots of nice things because I wasn't with a crew at that time. And I knew that if I was missing, that it all would disappear. So I insisted that they rush me back to the camp. And they sent an ambulance with a nurse and a doctor and brought me back. I was also concerned about having my folks hear that missing in action, which they send out right away. But I wasn't injured in any way except psychologically. I couldn't walk any place. I had to double time every place. They sent me to a rest home, what they call a flak shack. And when I arrived, I was not the nicest person in the world. I said, I don't want to be here. I want you to send me back. And they said, look, the officer in charge is away. Why don't you stay here for a while, and as soon as he comes, we'll send you back. And that was just a story, because I stretched out on this cot, and they told me that when they came to wake me up, that it took them 45 minutes because I was completely out of it. And after that, I started to ease everything. And after 12 days there, I was on my knees begging them, don't send me back, keep me here. I should have brought a picture. I have a picture of the flak shack, and on the back, I have the signatures of 3 young ladies that worked there. They were former airline stewardesses, and they were part of the American Army to take care of the people that were injured. I was dancing with one of them when we got the news that President Roosevelt died. And I said, let's keep dancing. And she says, the president died. And I says, yeah, so did a lot of my friends, but you know, the music is fine. And of course, we didn't dance. It was time for more respectful time. But they were delightful ladies. There wasn't anything that you wanted that they couldn't do for you. If you wanted to play a certain card game, one of them knew. Whatever it was, they were there. And when I came back, after leaving there, I had to fly quite a few more missions. And here's a very interesting thing. I received a postcard from home dated March 4th, 1945. Are you okay? Is everything okay? That's all that was on the postcard. And it was from my mom. I never responded, but when I was home after I was discharged from the service, I said, how come you sent me a postcard? You always sent me a letter and put money in it. Why a postcard? She said, that night, my mother came to me, and my grandma had died many years prior. She said, my mom came to me and put her hand on my shoulder and said, don't worry, I'm taking care of Stanley. And it was March 4th, 1945. So through that, I've been a very, very lucky guy. I feel that I've been blessed, and I have good people looking after me.
Now, the occasion for your bailing out, was that hostile enemy fire?
No, the radio operator forgot to put the signal of the day on, and the people on the ground, we were in an overcast, and they shot us down.
Now, where was this?
It was right off the coast of England, not far from Albany.
So this was friendly fire?
Friendly fire, yes. And one of the not nice things that I had to do when I came home, after a leave, I was sent to Boca Raton. A chaplain came to me with the wife of one of the men that was in the plane, and I had to convince her that he was dead. Yeah, that wasn't a very nice thing I had to do, but you have to do what you got to do.
And were they honest back then that it was friendly fire? Were you honest?
Well,
Or don't they always-
if you read this,
I can see it's a list of killed in
list of
action.
the 8 men killed in action, and if you read what
The
it said.
aircraft went out of control and plunged into the North Sea,
Yes.
10 miles off.
That's what their record shows.
But this was not the true case.
That was not the true
Yeah.
case.
Was it-
It
was
isn't a
listed.
cover-up either. They
Right.
just didn't know.
8 men
8 men were
from
killed.
the first and second lieutenant, the flight officer, 2 tech sergeants, and 3 staff sergeants, 3 gunners, a radio operator, engineer, navigator, pilot, and co-pilot. The B-24 Bulls Incorporated.
Here's a picture of the plane.
Yeah, tell them.
Now, tell us something about this B-24 aircraft nose. It says Wolves
That's
Incorporated.
That's the
573rd.
name of the plane.
The aircraft was lost March 4th, 1945, off the Norfolk coast of England, returning from a mission to Stuttgart, Germany.
Show the one with the lady and the liquor that you had on one of
Oh.
That was,
Yes, this is
For a
the
little more
one
humor.
that I used to enjoy because it's so true. Double trouble, liquor and women.
Now, when you got back to the States,
Oh, there's a good story. I got back, I was put on a ship after I finished my 30th mission. I was put aboard a ship, and the morning that the ship was leaving England, we received the announcement that it was VE Day. The war was over in Europe. I was sent home. I went to Camp Dix, and from Camp Dix I called home and told my parents that I'll be coming home. And I lived in Brooklyn at the time. I took a train to Brooklyn, and I got off the subway train, and my father was waiting for me at the gate, and he had received, they sent it to my home, I didn't know, a letter about the Caterpillar Club, which says that you saved your life by use of a parachute. I was also given a membership in the Goldfish Club for having saved my life with the Mae West. Now, they received that at home, so having received that, they felt that I was hurt in some way. Here's my father at the gate, and he kept feeling my arms and legs. Are you sure you're okay? Well, we got out of the subway, and I'm convincing him I'm okay. We got on a trolley car to go to my house, and there was a black lady motorman, and my father is still feeling my arms and legs, and this lady with giant tears coming out of her eyes said, "Will you please go to the back? You're breaking my heart." I'll never forget that.
Was your mother there? Or?
No, my mother was at home.
Oh, and I thought maybe she had a big sign up with crutches.
Well, she had a lot of my cousins and uncles and aunts there.
They have a big dinner and all that?
No, it was just a family time, and I was shipped from there to Atlantic City for 10 days, 10 days of no sleep. It was a ball that we had there. We lived in a hotel. There was a giant table in the lobby, all full of cookies and fruit and just help yourself. And then I received my papers to get to Boca Raton. Now, Boca Raton was a secret base. The community college in Boca Raton is now on the exact property that this base was. And the secret base was a bombardier school where they had the Norden bomb site, and they taught bombardiers. When I arrived, I was one of 7 men that had returned from overseas. Everybody else there was permanent personnel. You came there, you didn't leave because of the fact that it was a secret base. When I arrived, the first sergeant said, "What do you want to do?" And being a wise guy, I said nothing. And he said, "Well, I'll give you the next best thing." And they taught me how to record the films of the bombardiers. Instead of dropping bombs, they were flown over an area and they took a series of pictures. I had a computer and the pictures and a mosaic of the area, and I was able to tell how close to the bombing area that the bomb hit, and I was able to mark that. That job took an hour and a half a day.
Now, the computer you're talking about is not the kind of computer that we know of today.
No, it was more like a nanning machine.
Calculator.
A calculator. And other than an hour and a half, I had a free pass, and I don't know why I ever left the Army, I tell you the truth.
Now, I want to go back a little bit in time. When you were stationed in England, Was your base subject to any attacks from the Germans, bomber run?
Prior to my being there, they had one attack.
What about the people? How did the English people, how were they? What was their daily life like?
Well, fortunately for me, I tell you I'm a lucky guy. My mother was born in England. She had cousins in London. And on my 3-day pass, I used to go to London and visit with the people. I was treated royally. I had a marvelous, marvelous time. They fed me with all the nice things that they could because they were rationed. But basically, the men were gone. A lot of the women were in service. The area I was in was pretty much farmland. So it was the main city was Norwich, and it was very accommodating, and the people were delightful.
Now, did you have any opportunities over there to have any visiting USO entertainment come to your base?
No, I was never part of that.
Okay, you were able to get occasional passes to go?
Well, you were able to go to London, and in London they had USO places, and this one big building had 2 sets of doors, and everything in those days were because of the blackout. You had 2 sets of doors. Well, I was coming out of the first door when somebody came through the second door, and he was, in terrible pain. Because of the blackout, he was walking out in the street, and somebody couldn't see where they were going and put their finger in his eye. So that was one of the difficulties that you could come across.
Did you notice any destruction from the German bombing over in England?
A block and a half away from where I was staying, a buzz bomb hit a post office and a department store, and it would cause quite a ruckus, and lucky guy that I am, I slept through it. I didn't know about it until they told me about it the next day.
Now, returning to Boca Raton, Florida, were you discharged from there? Was there additional military duties?
Well, when I came from overseas and I went to Camp Dix, they told us, when we call your name, come up and we'll get you out of here. They never called my name. Some officers came in and they said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Well, you never called my name." It seems they lost my papers, and they got a special pass for me to be able to go home. And then while I was at home, they ordered me to Atlantic City, and then to Boca Raton, without any papers. When the war was over, when the Japanese were bombed and the war was over, I said, I'm entitled to go home, I have enough points. And they said, well, we have no record of that. And somehow I was able to, but a lot of my records were lost. And I was able to tell them where I was, what I did, and that I had enough points to be discharged. They sent me to Tampa, Florida, and I was discharged from Tampa.
Did you have to pay your own way home?
At that time I had my own automobile, and I was able to drive home. No, they gave me $300 severance.
Mustering out pay.
Mustering out pay, and that was the last of the of the Army or Air Force that I have been a part of.
Have you ever taken any opportunities to get together with in reunions?
No, I never did.
And what about?
I became a very busy guy.
What did you do after the service?
Well, I went back to the factory, and we eventually split our plant from New York. My father and I opened a place in Nanuet, New York, and wasn't successful. We struggled there for 7 years, and then I decided that I didn't care for that business anyway. I got a job as an automobile salesman in New Jersey, which is right over the border from Rockland County, and I started to sell automobiles, and eventually moved north to Poughkeepsie, from Poughkeepsie to Hudson, where I've just closed my own dealership that I owned for 31 years. So I was a very busy guy, and
So you were never in any of these military organizations or anything? And
no.
did anything you ever learn in the service help you in your life afterward? Or
Well, I would say getting along with people.
Oh, that helped.
Yes. I always felt that if a high school graduate spent 2 years in the service, regardless of what branch, he would be more able to tolerate starting in college than somebody that leaves high school and goes to college. I think 2 years away. My granddaughter just spent 2 years out of college, and realized that she has to go back and get her master's, or she's not going to go anyplace.
Now, there's one last item that I noticed over here. I assume that from your memoirs, you kept a record of missions and so forth.
Yes, I have a record of 30 missions. My first mission was near Bremen, little flak. There were fighter planes there. That was the group's 100th mission. And our group wasn't hit. My second mission was Magdeburg. There was lots of flak. I saw a plane go down in flames, and we had some flak holes in our ship. The next mission was in France, near Metz, and there was lots of fighter support from our side because we weren't that far away. And there again I saw a ship leave over the English coast. They ran out of gas and they crashed. We have 30 of these if you want to hear
I got a couple of them.
Yeah, just do 2 or 3 of them.
Let's see.
Would you write this up after you'd flown it? And
No, right after each mission. I wanted to find.
the one after you were floating in the North Sea? That
Right,
wait a while.
that's what I'm looking for.
That wasn't your last mission?
No,
Were you really scared when you had to go back to do the next one?
here's one. We bombed near Berlin. The flak was intense and accurate. I lost 2 good friends from another crew, and there was one where I said they put up everything but the kitchen sink, and that day I washed. Oh, God. Where is it?
Did you bring any souvenirs back with you from?
Yes, I did. I brought some ammunition, which when my children were born, I gave away to the police. Here it is. Yeah, I flew 13 missions after I was shut down.
Okay, well, we thank you very much for sharing your story with us.
I'm happy to be of help to you.